Good afternoon and welcome everyone. Wow, what a nice crowd. We never know how many copies to make of the program, so I told Pat yesterday 25 and she said she just went and made 10 more. So thank you all for coming. This is a program of pop music set to jazz arrangements by what's his name? Brett Edstrom. I had never heard of him. I tried to look him up. He's a professor and an arranger. I tried several ways to find what age he is, but the closest I could come was he graduated from college in 1965. So he's a little bit older than I am. So we will start with California Dreamin'. Can you guess what year this was released and by whom? Mamas and the Papas. 65. And if you like this song, which who doesn't, make sure you put on your calendars to come to the First Presbyterian Church on Saturday at 3 o'clock for a concert called Matapalooza in honor of Matt Boyce, and we are singing this as well as other pieces. thank you. Bridge Over Troubled Waters was sung first by Simon and Garfunkel. What year? Was that? 70. Very good. One of my favorites. What year and who sang Happy Together? The Turtles? 60, 60, 66. You guys are good. I want to welcome my nephew, J. Paul Pepper. I think this is his first time attending a recital, yes? I think, can I say that, are you ashore for June the 29th? Yes. Well, he is now, I just put him on the spot. June the 29th, I'm going to Kennywood with Synergy family, and J. Paul will be here to play in my stead. So before he leaves, you can meet him, Remy, okay? Pass the requirement on to Billy if necessary. I was telling him before, just now, I started to count how many accidentals I'm playing today. An accidental is, anybody, J. Paul? Original key signature. Lots of jazz chords, which I love, but I'm less comfortable playing those than I am a hymn, okay? So, next, God Only Knows was sung by Rennie, the Beach Boys. What year? That's what Rennie said. Brian Wilson just died this morning, and he wrote God Only Knows. What year? I heard it. 66. By the Beach Boys. This program is short because these are not easy for me to play. J. Paul asked me if I were sight reading or I had to actually practice. I had to actually practice. So there's lots more in this book. I love this book. I will be practicing for next month, July 9th, to be continued from this book. Included will be 2 gospel classics. People get ready. You know that? People get ready. There's a train a-coming. Mimp sang that when I was first started dating him. But he would never finish it. And then family events, he and his brothers and cousins and nephews would sing it, but they would never finish it. Another classic gospel tune, let me see, Lean on Me, sung by who? Remember? I'm not sure that it's a gospel classic. Bill Withers. Remember Bill Withers? Okay, 2 more to go, then we're done. I'm going to skip to the bottom. Time after time, I didn't get time to learn that. Sorry seems to be the hardest word. I'm sorry, but I'm not doing that one either. I'm going to skip to the end and come back for one more. We've only just begun. Everybody knows who did that. The Carpenters. What year? 1970. Yep. We've only just begun. Karen Carpenter, what of one? Okay, what year? Just the way we were. Just the way you are. And by whom? Billy Joel. 1970. What'd you say? 70 again, yep. I dedicate this to my late husband. I met him 50 years ago in April, and he never tried to change me. When he met me, I was a size 2. There weren't sizes in those days, but I would have been a 2. I'm not a 2 anymore. Through the years, I gained and lost weight and gained and lost weight. Never once did that man say to me, "You shouldn't eat that chocolate cake." Never once. And I did the same with him, because when we met, he was very skinny, and he died skinny because of cancer, but in the meantime, he had gained weight. We never argued, we never discussed things like that. He loved me just the way I was. you very much, and thank you for coming. Pastor Billy is on a date with a man, right? At the golf. You ruined the joke.
Darla had her birthday yesterday. We celebrated in the office. She's 57. And that's what we're saying, and you keep telling that story, okay? I would like to ask Darla to do one thing before we go. When I come and watch her, I'm mesmerized by her fingers. Probably you are too as you watch her glide over the keyboard. And I keep expecting something, all this talent to ooze out of the little finger right here on the left hand. But I'd like you to do something different. That's the first time I ever did it. Come back and play one verse of God Only Knows. Okay? While she does that, I don't want you to look at Darla. I want you to look at the rosebud window up there. Okay? Because that's the story of Jesus and the story of life. And in some churches, they call that an infinity window. And so as she plays, keep your eyes on that. You'll see the sound fills all the way to the ceiling. She plays so beautifully. And as she plays, God Only Knows, think about what God only knows about you. And then go in. We are so blessed to be in this venue, to have this wonderful talent who stimulates our senses. We thank God for her, and we thank God that you came today. Let's bow in prayer. Lord, you are so good to us that you give us days like today where we can hear the tinkling of the keys and know that you are present with us. Thank you that we can allow ourselves to be filled with the senses that you provide. Now bless us as we go. May we be blessed by what Darla has delivered to us. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you, give you his peace today, tonight, and tomorrow, forever and ever and ever. Go home. Amen. Go home.